The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. Author, Jin Yong. Chapter 3. Part A. Flowers bloom, flowers wither. The young men in the martial world have become old. The young girls have begun to show their age with hair turning white. It has been over 50 years since the demise of the Sung dynasty. On this third month of the new lunar year, a 30-some-year-old man walks on the beach in the southern China. He wears a blue robe, a pair of grass shoes, walking quickly forward, as if in a hurry. Although surrounded by beautiful trees and flowers, he has no time to enjoy the scenery. Seeing that the sky is getting darker, he thinks, today is the 24th day of the third month. It's only 14 days till 9th day of the fourth month. If I hurry, I can make it just in time for Master's 90th birthday. This man is Yu Daiyan, the third disciple under the founder of Wudang, Zhang. At the beginning of the year, Yu Daiyan was ordered to kill an evil, murderous outlaw. When that outlaw heard about this, he went into hiding. It took Yu Daiyan an extra 2 months just to find him. He then challenged the outlaw to a fight, and on the 11th move, killed him with his silence illusory saber. But by spending an extra 2 months, he now has to travel extra quickly to make it back in time for his master's birthday. Now that he is close to the sea, he sees a wide, flat area sparkling on the beach, something he has never seen before. When he asked the locals, he chuckled after hearing the response. For these are nets used to capture seawater to make salt. Yu Daiyan thinks, I have eaten salt for over 30 years, yet never knew how they're made. As he continues on his journey, Yu Daiyan sees 12 people carrying some bags on their shoulders, walking quickly. From the look of things, they're all carrying salt. But this is more than 200 pounds of salt each person's carrying. Since corrupt officials like to hoard salts, it's rare for commoners to be able to buy them through legitimate means. Salt smugglers are quite common in this area. Yu Daiyan thinks, wow, looks like salt smuggling is very important here. These people's kung fu skills are quite good. If it had been some other time, he would have wanted to take a closer look. But he can't possibly miss his master's birthday, so he ignores them. By nightfall he arrives at a small town, and settles down in the inn there. After eating the dinner and finishes washing his feet, Yu Daiyan sees that those 12 salt smugglers also came into this inn. He ignores them, and begins to meditate using Wudang's inner power. After 3 repetitions, he lies down and falls asleep. At midnight, Yu Daiyan suddenly hears much noise coming from outside. He immediately gets up, only to hear someone say, let's leave quietly. We don't want to wake up our neighbor. The rest of them open the door quietly and moves quickly outside. Yu Daiyan thinks, they must be up to something bad to walk around at this hour. I can't ignore this. If I save some innocent people, then it would be okay even if I miss Master's birthday. He wraps his saber in a cloth and jumps out the window. With footsteps as his guide, Yu Daiyan follows secretly, utilizing his lightness kung fu. There is almost no moonlight, but he can still see those 12 people running quickly in the darkness. He thinks, with their kung fu skills, these people can easily go rob rich landowners or officials. Why do they need to settle for salt smuggling? There's something fishy going on. With his great lightness kung fu, Yu Daiyan manages to follow the 12 people without a sound. After following for about an hour, they arrived at a beach. Suddenly, he hears a croaked whisper, are the 3 water-dotted friends here? The leader of the 12 men responds, yes. And you are? Yu Daiyan ponders, who could these 3 water-dotted people be? He suddenly remembers, of course, it's the Ming Sect. These 3 characters are all begin with 3 water dots. Only to hear the croaked person say, in my opinion, you're better off staying away from the Dragon Saber. The leader says, are you here for the Dragon Saber too? His voice carries a tinge of disbelief. The croaked man starts to laugh sinisterly, but does not respond. Note, 3 water dots is a term used to describe a particular left side of many Chinese characters. Usually characters with the 3 water dots have to do with water. Yu Daiyan moved up to get a better view, only to see that it's a white-robed man blocking their path. Anyone who dares to wear white in the middle of the night must be extremely confident of his kung fu. That white-robed man laughs again, while the group leader yells, get out of our way. Unless you want to die. Before he finished, a person suddenly yells out in pain, ah! And falls on the ground, dead. The white-robed man then quickly flies away. Some members of the Sisan sect want to chase after him, but they don't know which way he went. Yu Daiyan ponders, this man's speed is incredible. He seemingly just used Shaolin's golden steel claws, but I can't be sure in this darkness. From his voice, it seems like he's from the northwestern part of China. What is he doing here? He then hears the leader say, "Put down fourth brother. We'll come back for him afterwards." The rest of the members then continue on their path. Yu Daiyan jumps out and examines the body, seeing 2 small holes on the person's neck, made obviously by 2 fingers. He feels that there must be something important going on, and quickens his pace, following the Sisan sect members. After a while, those people begin to split up, surrounding a house. Yu Daiyan wonders, is that dragon saber they're talking about in this house? He then sees the people outside begin to pour salt around the house, and thinks, why are they pouring salt around this place? Wait till I tell this to my brothers. I bet there's no way they'd believe me. But then he sees that these people pour salt in a very cautious manner, as if afraid that the salt will touch them. Yu Daiyan immediately realizes what is going on. There must be poison within the salt. He's not certain whether the people inside are good or bad, but figures that he needs to warn them regardless. In an instant, he flew towards the house. There are many rooms in this house. But he sees that smoke is coming out of one of the rooms, so he figures that there must be someone there. When he arrives outside that room, he hears loud sound of fire, with 3 people standing besides a huge fireplace, with a huge saber in the middle. Those 3 people look to be about 60, their faces filled with smoke. Even from afar, Yu Daiyan feels like he's burning from the fire. He can't believe that those people can stay that close. Yet despite the huge flames, that sword did not change its color to red, remaining black. At this moment, he hears a croaked voice, "How dare you to mess with a precious saber? Get away from it." Yu Daiyan realizes that it's the white-robed man's voice. Those 3 people ignore the warning, and continue to work on the saber, only to hear a chuckle coming from the roof as the white-robed man dashed in. He looks around 40, with a pale white face. He says in a cold voice, "Long white elders, I don't blame you for trying to get the saber. But why try to destroy it with this fire?" One of the 3 men walks up, picks up a shovel, and attacks the white-robed man. The white-robed man evades to the side, and then counters with fingers in a claw shape, dancing up and down with a huge force. Yu Daiyan sees that his moves look like it's from Shaolin on the surface, but is more aggressive and venomous, certainly not as righteous as Shaolin's Kung Fu. After a while, the old man with a shovel yells, "Who are you? You should at least leave your name." The white-robed man chuckles again. His hands shot out, breaking the wrists of the old man. The second old man immediately grabs the saber out from the fire, while the third man takes out a dart, waiting for a chance to use it on the white-robed man. But the white-robed man is too fast. At this time, one can see smoke coming out of the second old man's hands. It's obvious that his hand is burning, yet for some reason, he does not let go of the saber. As he runs out of the hut, the white-robed man yells, "Do you really think you can get away?" Raising his eyebrows a bit, he quickly flies over to the second old man, picks him up, and throws him into the fire. Yu Daiyan originally didn't plan on helping either side, but with someone's life in danger, he felt that he needed to help out. He jumps out of his hiding place and pushed the old man lightly while spinning in mid-air, then floated down to the floor. The long white elders and the white-robed man had long known that he was outside, but no one cared. So they can't help but feel an incredible shock when Yu Daiyan displayed such a skillful lightness kung fu. The white-robed man says, "Is this the famous Cloud Stairs?" Yu Daiyan first feels a bit of shock that this man knows of his kung fu, but then feels happy, knowing that his Wudang kung fu is so famous. He says, "This plain kung fu is nothing to brag about. May I ask who you are?" That white-robed man says, "Very nice. Wudang's kung fu really is fairly decent." Despite being a bit angry at his words, Yu Daiyan does not show it. Instead he says, "The power you displayed while killing that member of the Sisan sect is quite amazing too. I can't even tell what kind it is." The white-robed man wonders, "He saw that? I wonder where he was hiding at the time. How come I didn't sense him?" He says, "Of course you couldn't tell. Not even your old man Zhang can figure it out." Yu Daiyan felt greatly annoyed at this ridicule of his own master. But Wudang students are all taught to be calm and peaceful. He thinks, This person is purposely trying to make me mad. There's no reason for Wudang to add another powerful enemy. He says, there are thousands of kung fus in this world, both righteous ones and evil ones. Wudang's kung fu only came from one source. Your skills look like it's from Shaolin, but at the same time seems different. That white-robed man's expression changes a bit, as if flustered by this comment. While they are talking, the second old man with the saber suddenly lashes out. Yu Daiyan quickly dodges the blow, while seeing the old man aimlessly slashes left and right, as if he has gone crazy. The white-robed man and the other two old men realize the power of the saber, and do not try to block him. As the old man runs out of the house, he suddenly trips, falling on the ground and begins to scream in agony. The other two old men and the white-robed man immediately reaches out to grab the saber, but they all fell down once they reaches outside. The two old men start to roll around on the ground screaming, while the white-robed man simply flips up, and flies away. Yu Daiyan wants to immediately go save those three people, but then remembers the scene of salt being spread. He realizes that the whole area has been poisoned. Looking around, he sees some stools. Quickly, he threw a couple outside, then jumps onto them. With some clothing wrapped around his hand, he quickly picks up the old man with the saber. Only to see over 10 darts coming from the surrounding Wudang Sect members. Yu Daiyan bounces up from the stools, dodging the darts. He then flipped the stools forward with his feet, allowing him to step-by-step jump out of the salted area. Once outside, he immediately opens up his lightness kung fu to quickly run away from the Wudang Sect members. Yu Daiyan realizes that he must first get rid of the poison from this old man. So he quickly runs to the beach, and throws the old man into the water to cleanse him. Once cleansed, Yu Daiyan says, "Your life is no longer in danger. Since I have other businesses to take care of, I shall take leave of you." That old man asks, "Why don't you take my saber?" Yu Daiyan says, "Although that's a great saber, it's not mine. Why should I take it?" That person says, "What are you up to? How are you going to torture me?" Yu Daiyan says, "I don't even know you. Why would I want to torture you? I just wanted to save you because your life was in danger." That old man doesn't believe him, instead yelling, "Just kill me and get it over with. But be warned that even as a ghost I will haunt you." Yu Daiyan simply smiles a bit, thinking that this old man must be a little crazy from the poison. Just as he's about to leave, a wave came from the sea, carrying the old man into the waters. Yu Daiyan realizes that there are still poisons left in this old man's body. If he doesn't help him recover, this old man will die. Therefore he carried the old man, until they reached an empty building. Looking up, he sees that it's a temple, called Sea God Temple. He put the old man by a statue. Then lights up a candle. When he looks at the old man again, he sees that the poison has spread all over the body. Yu Daiyan takes out a heaven heart antidote from his pocket and says, "Take this pill." That old man says, "I'm not going to eat your poison pills." Despite his peaceful attitude, Yu Daiyan can't help but be angry at those remarks. He says, "Do you know who I am? Do you think a Wudang disciple would do such a thing as using poison? This pill is to help ease the poison in you. Although it might not cure the poison totally, it can at least prolong your life for 3 days. I suggest you give this saber to the Wudang Sect in return for its antidote." That old man jumps up and yells, "I can't give up my dragon saber." Yu Daiyan says, "What's the use of this saber if you're going to die?" The old man responds, "I'd rather die than give up this saber." As he says this, he clutches the saber tightly, then swallows Yu Daiyan's pill. His words raised Yu Daiyan's curiosity. He wants to ask just what's so great about this saber, but decided not to after he sees the obsessive, angry look on the old man's face. Feeling repulsed, Yu Daiyan stands up to leave. That old man yells, "Hold on. Where are you going?" Yu Daiyan smiles and says, "What's it to you?" and begins to leave. The old man begins to cry after he walks a few steps. Yu Daiyan turns around and asks, "Why are you crying?" The old man says, "I spent so much effort just to obtain this saber, yet now I'm going to die. What's the use of this saber now?" Yu Daiyan let out a humphrey, and says, "The only thing you can do now is to exchange the saber for the antidote." That old man cries, "But I don't want to. I don't want to." Yu Daiyan wants to laugh at his words, but can't do so. After a while, he says, "The whole point of learning martial arts is help the defenseless and defeat the evils of the world, setting a good example for the later generations. Precious sabers and swords are simply items. Hardly something worth your life. The old man says, martial world's most venerable, prized saber dragon slaying, controlling all under heaven, none dares to not follow. Have you heard this phrase? Yu Daiyan chuckles and says, of course I've heard it. There are two more phrases after this, something like power of heaven not appear, who can possibly compete? That's just to describe an event many years ago, not really some saber. That old man asks, what event? Yu Daiyan says, that's because the legendary Condor hero Yang Guo once killed the Mongol emperor, which greatly helped us Huns. So whenever Hero Yang asks of something, none dares to not listen. The dragon is here as obviously the emperor. Dragon slaying means to kill the emperor. Do you really think there are such things as dragons in this world? That old man smiles coldly, asking, do you know what weapon he used during that battle? Yu Daiyan thinks for a moment, then responds, I heard the master say that Hero Yang was missing an arm. So he normally doesn't carry any weapon. That old man asks, so how did he kill the emperor? Yu Daiyan says, he used a pebble. Everyone knows that. The old man says with a smile, in that case, where does this whole saber thing come from? Yu Daiyan can't find the answer. After a while, he finally says, probably because it's made up by others. I mean, little pebble dragon slaying doesn't sound nearly as nice. That old man says, you're just making it up. How about this, can you explain the meaning of power of heaven not appear, who can possibly compete? Yu Daiyan says, I don't know. Perhaps it's to describe his wife. Maybe his wife's name is the power of heaven. Or he might have meant Guo Jing, Hero Guo. That old man says, really? I know you can explain it. Let me tell you. Dragon slaying is a saber. It's this dragon saber I have. The power of heaven is a sword, the heaven sword. This poem means that whoever has the dragon saber can rule the world. As long as the heaven sword does not appear, no one can compete with the dragon saber. Yu Daiyan doesn't know whether to believe or not, and says, let me look at it, and see just what's so powerful about this saber. That old man tightly clutches the dragon saber, says, you think I'm a kid? Trying to take my saber, eh? He just recovered a bit after taking the pill Yu Daiyan gave him. Yet by spending too much energy clutching the saber, he begins to have trouble breathing. Yu Daiyan chuckles, and says, if you don't want me to see it, then so be it. Besides, whom are you going to control anyway? Are you telling me that I'm going to listen to your orders because of this saber? You must be kidding. You are a normal person. But after listening to such a stupid rumor, you've now nearly lost your life. It's obvious that this saber has no special powers. That old man stays silent for a while, then says, hey, let's make a deal. You help save my life, and I'll give you half of this saber's powers. Yu Daiyan laughs, and says, is that how you think of us Wudang Sect? We don't help others for any rewards. Besides, I don't have the antidote to your poison. You still have to ask the Sisan sect for it. That old man says, I stole this saber from them. Why would they save me? Yu Daiyan says, if you give them back their saber, why would they care to kill you? That old man says, your kung fu is incredible. I'm sure you can steal some from them. Yu Daiyan says, first, I have something important to do, and don't have time for such a thing. Besides, you stole their saber. So it's your fault to begin with. Why should I help you steal the antidote? Old man, I suggest you hurry and go ask for the antidote now, before it's too late. Seeing that he's about to leave, that old man says in a hurry, okay. Let me ask you something else. How did you feel when you carried me? Yu Daiyan says, I thought it was kind of strange. You look small and skinny, yet you seemingly weigh over 200 pounds. But I'm not sure why. That old man put down the dragon saber, and says, now lift me. Yu Daiyan picks him up, and feels like he's only lifting about 80 pounds of weight. He thinks, wow, this saber is over 100 pounds. That is quite strange. After putting the old man back down again, he says, this saber is pretty heavy. The old man asks, is your surname Yu or Zhang? Yu Daiyan says, my name is Yu Daiyan. How do you know? The old man says, I know that first hero song is over 40 years old. Your 6th and 7th brother Yin and Muo are still less than 20. The rest of the 4 Wudang heroes all have surnames of Yu or Zhang. Everyone knows that. I'm grateful to meet the great third hero Yu today. Although he's fairly young, Yu Daiyan is quite experienced in the ways of the martial world. He knows that this old man only says such praises because he wants a favor. With a feeling of repulsiveness, he says, "And you are?" The old man says, "My name is De Cheng. Everyone calls me Hai Dong Qing." Hai Dong Qing is a type of eagle, famous for its viciousness and predatory skills. Yu Daiyan says, "Nice to meet you." Then proceeds to look up at the sky, trying to figure out the time. The old man realizes that he needs to try some other trick for this person to help him. So he says, "You don't realize the meaning behind these words." There. When he says this, Yu Daiyan's expression suddenly changes. He immediately blows out the candle and whispers, "Someone's here." De Cheng's inner power is not nearly as good as Yu Daiyan, so he did not notice anything. Only after a while does he hear footsteps coming from the front. He says, "Let's sneak out the back." Yu Daiyan says, "They have people in the back too. Besides, it's the Sisan sect. This is your opportunity to exchange for the antidote." The old man clutches onto him tightly, yells, "Third hero, you can't leave me. You can." At this time, someone kicked down the door as Yu Daiyan quickly hides behind a Buddha statue. When De Cheng let out a small sound, tens of darts came out straight at him, prompting him to fall down. Only to hear more sounds of hidden weapons being released, all containing the poison salts. After a while, Yu Daiyan hears the roof shaking, as salt begins to pour down through the cracks. Realizing that the salts will eventually touch him, Yu Daiyan quickly smashes a hole into the Buddha next to him, and crawls into the hole. Yu Daiyan then hears someone in the Sisan sect says, "There are no more sounds. They're probably all unconscious." Another person says, "That youngster's footsteps are very light. It's better to wait a while longer. I'm just afraid that he may have escaped." Then someone yells loudly, "Get out of here and surrender." At this moment Yu Daiyan hears many horses gallop on the outside. Then someone from outside yells, "The sun and moon's lights shine, the Eagle King spreads its wings." This made the Sisan sect quiet. After a while, someone yells, "It's the Heavenly Eagle sect. Let's get out of here." When he finishes, the galloping sound stopped. Then someone whispers, "Too late." Several people then enter the temple. One person asks, "Do you know who we are?" Several members of the Sisan sect answers, "Yes. You are friends from the Heavenly Eagle sect." That person says, "This is Heaven City Branch's leader Li of our Heavenly Eagle sect. You're lucky to see him today." Leader Li asks you where the dragon Saber is. If you're nice enough to answer correctly, he just might be kind enough to let you keep your life. Only to hear a Sisan member points to De Cheng, and says, He took it. We're just about to take it back." That person from the Heavenly Eagle asks De Cheng, "Where is it?" De Cheng does not respond, instead simply falls to the ground. That person from the Heavenly Eagle says, "Search him." Yu Daiyan hears some people making ruffling noises, and then someone saying, "This person has nothing on him." The leader of the Sisan group says, But it really is him who stole the dragon saber." Yu Daiyan wonders, "Wait a minute. Where did the dragon saber go? Didn't De Cheng have it on him?" This branch leader Li does not say anything, but his subordinate says, "If you want to stay alive, then tell the truth." After a moment of silence, someone begins to yell, "You came right after we entered the temple. How could we have time to grab the saber beforehand? If you don't believe us, then we're going to die anyway. So we might as well go down fighting. You bunch of bullies, He suddenly stops talking, obviously dead. Another person says, "I saw a middle-aged man with pretty good lightness kung fu with him. I bet that man has it, and escaped." Branch leader Li says, "Search them." Yu Daiyan again hears ruffling sounds, and then hears branch leader Li says, "He's probably right. Let's go search for that man." Yu Daiyan wants to wait till the Sisan people left too before getting out. But after a long time, he still could not hear any footsteps. He takes a peek outside, only to see the members of the Sisan sect standing still, as if their pressure points have been sealed. He jumps out, takes a torch, and begins to examine their faces, only to see their faces gray and without life. He wonders, who are these Heavenly Eagle people anyway? How come I've never heard of them? They're obviously quite powerful, or these people won't be so afraid of them. Humphrey, they certainly deserve their fate. He then goes over and pushes the Hua Meng point of one of the person to unseal his pressure point. Yet the person still remains still. Yu Daiyan then puts his finger by that person's nose, and realizes that this person's dead already. He thinks, wow. They could seal their death points without making any sound. That is a very evil kung fu indeed. But seeing how these people are very powerful, and he's just by himself, Yu Daiyan knows that he can't fight them. He decides to report this to his master, and have him choose how to handle the Heavenly Eagle Sect. Seeing poisoned salt all around him, Yu Daiyan decides to burn this place and the surrounding area, so no innocents will be killed. As he went out, he sees a strange body. Yu Daiyan then picks it up to examine further. He finds that the body is very heavy. From a hole in the back, he pulls out the dragon saber. Apparently, De Cheng hid the dragon saber into one of the Sisan members before dying. The Heavenly Eagle Sect people must not have noticed as they checked the bodies. Yu Daiyan thinks, this saber has caused many problems in the world. I really should give it to the master, so he can decide what to do with it. With a throw of his torch, he burns down the temple. As the fire is burning, Yu Daiyan examines the saber closely. He finds that the saber doesn't look like it's made of iron or gold, and can't figure out just what kind of metal it's made of. The fact that it can withstand so much heat is also quite strange. He thinks, how can one use this sword in battle considering that it's so heavy? Yu Daiyan then wraps up the saber and puts it on the back of his shoulders, then continues on his journey. After an hour or so, he arrives at the edge of a river. Seeing a flicker of fire on the river from afar, he yells, "Can I get a ride across the river?" The person on the boat didn't seem to hear. So he yells again, this time with his inner power. The boat then quickly comes over. When it reaches the edge, someone on the boat yells, "Do you want to go across the river?" Yu Daiyan says happily, "Yes. Thank you." That fisherman says, "Then get on." As he steps onto the boat, it immediately sinks down a bit. That fisherman asks with surprise, "What are you carrying that's so heavy?" Yu Daiyan says, "Oh, nothing. I'm just a heavy person, that's all." When they reach the middle of the river, he suddenly sees a big boat coming over. An eagle flag appears in the front. Yu Daiyan immediately remembers the Heavenly Eagle Sect, and begins to prepare himself for any danger. Suddenly, the fisherman jumps into the water and quickly swims away. Yu Daiyan is left on his own, as the big ship rams into a small boat. Seeing that the boat is about to sink, Yu Daiyan jumps onto the big ship using his Cloud Stairs lightness kung fu. On the big ship, he looks around, seeing no one. An iron chain locks the door to the main cabin. He quickly breaks it down with his palm, and enters the cabin. Only to hear someone inside say, "Third hero you of Wudang. Great cloud stairs and mountain cracking palm you just displayed. Leave your dragon saber with me, and I'll safely take you across the river." Yu Daiyan thinks, how does he know who I am? That person then says, "You must be wondering how I know your identity. It's quite easy, actually. Other than the top fighters of Wudang, no one can utilize those two moves with such gracefulness." Yu Daiyan says, "Can I meet you? And what about your name?" That person says, "We Heavenly Eagle Sect is neither friend nor foe of Wudang. No need for such pleasantries. Just leave your dragon saber here, and I'll take you across safely." Yu Daiyan says, "Is this saber yours?" That person says, "No. But whoever has it can control the martial world. Who wouldn't want it?" Yu Daiyan says, "If it's not yours, then there's no need for me to give it to you." That person then says something else. But Yu Daiyan can't hear. He steps a bit closer, asking, "What did you say?" Suddenly, a large wave rocks the boat. As he's regaining his balance, Yu Daiyan felt as if being bitten by mosquitoes on the leg and chest. He does not take notice, instead says, "You have killed ruthlessly for this saber. I don't like your way of doing things." That person says, "We are always ruthless towards those who are evil, but we are kind towards those who are good. As long as Hero Yu leaves the dragon saber, I will give you the antidote for the mosquito needle." When he hears the words mosquito needle, Yu Daiyan immediately reaches for the places where he thought he was bitten by mosquitoes. He instantly feels weak and numb. Then Yu Daiyan realizes, he tricked me to get closer to him, so he could have a chance to hit me with these needles. Looks like the only way to get the antidote is to grab him. He takes a deep breath, and rushes forward. His right palm shoots out, matching the palm of the other person. This palm contains all his power, and sent the other person backward. However, he also feels a bit of pain on his palm after that exchange. For his opponent once again deceives him, by coating his palm with a type of hidden weapon, one that poisoned Yu Daiyan as they matched palms. After coughing a bit, that person says, "Your power really is amazing. But my 7-star needle is also quite deadly. Looks like it's a tie. Yu Daiyan quickly takes a heaven-hard antidote, but realizes that this can only delay the effects of the poison. He then tries to attack the enemy with his saber, but his attacks were easily parried. Then he heard that person say, "Do you want your life or the saber?" Yu Daiyan says, "Fine. I'll give it to you," and throws the saber down. That person happily picks up the saber and begins to examine it. Yu Daiyan says, "Now where's my antidote?" That person laughs, "You really are stupid. Why did you give me the saber before I gave you the antidote?" Yu Daiyan says, "A man should remain true to his words. You promised me the antidote." That person says, "When you had the saber, I was afraid of you. After all, even if you can't beat me, at least you may throw the saber away. But now that I have saber, why should I still care about you?" Yu Daiyan feels much rage coming up from his chest, thinking that Wudang and Heavenly Eagle Sect has never had problems before, plus this person's kung fu is quite powerful in the martial world. Why would he not keep his word? Yu Daiyan normally is quite hard to trick. But in such an unusual place, after getting poisoned twice, his mind obviously did not work as well. After gathering himself, Yu Daiyan asks, "May I ask your name?" That person says, "I'm just a nobody in the Heavenly Eagle Sect. If Wudang wants to take revenge, then obviously they should look for our leader. Besides, I doubt Zhang Sanfeng can figure out who killed you anyway." Yu Daiyan could only feel as if his hands are being bitten by thousands of ants, thinks, "Even though I die today, I'll take you with me." With a scream, he rushes up and attacks with his right palm. That person instinctively tries to block with the dragon saber, but forgot that the saber is extremely heavy. Instead of blocking, it actually pulled down his body. In a few seconds, Yu Daiyan's palm lands on his chest, pushing him into the water. Yu Daiyan thinks, although you have obtained your precious saber, but now you've died along with it. Suddenly, he sees a white rope thrown down into the water, grabbing the waist of that person. Only to see a skinny green-robed person on the edge of the ship, pulling on the rope. Unfortunately, by this time, the poison has taken over his body, and he passes out.